Hello and welcome to our event today, See Concealed Threat Activity Before Encryption with Precryption Technology. Today's webinar is sponsored by Gigamon and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech Media and I'm excited to be your moderator for this demo-packed presentation that we've got coming today. So before we get to today's great content, we do have a few housekeeping items that will help you get the most out of this session. First off, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in your webinar control panel. Not only will we have team members responding to questions during the live event, but we'll also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll discuss in greater detail some of the top questions that you ask. The Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues that you might be experiencing. A browser refresh will fix most audio, video, or slide advancement issues, but if that doesn't work, just let us know there in the Q&A and we'll provide further technical assistance. Now, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we're offering several resources. And I'd especially like to call your attention to several from Gigamon. There's a PDF of a Precryption solution brief. There's a link to learn more about Precryption. There's a PDF of a report from EMA Research. There's a link to set up a personal demo, and there's links to rewatch some of the videos that you'll see in this presentation. So I highly encourage you to access those resources now and share them with your friends and colleagues. Now, at the end of this webinar event, we will be awarding a $250 Amazon gift card to one lucky registrant. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for the prize. The official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handout section. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll find the prize terms and conditions link there. Now, finally, one of the best benefits of this event is the opportunity to ask a question of our expert presenters. And so to help encourage your questions, we have a special additional prize for you. That's another Amazon gift card, this one for $50 for the best question. After the event is over, the ATM team will look at all the questions that came in, pick out the very best one, and contact that prize winner. Okay, and with that, let's get to today's awesome presentation and demos. We're going to hear about something that's a brand new concept for a lot of us, Precryption. So to set us up for today's presentation, we've got a short lightboard video from Gigamon's Martin Crew that will give us a nice overview.
90% of today's enterprise traffic is encrypted, and while it has many legitimate purposes, it's a double-edged sword, because encryption can also be used by the bad guys to hide their movements across your network. My name's Martin Crew from Gigamon, and I'm going to take a minute to introduce you to Gigamon's groundbreaking Precryption technology. So we all know what happens when a bad guy breaks on the network. They get into the network through phishing, through whatever techniques, and then they use encrypted tunneling to navigate the network. They move laterally across the network until they find a high-value asset, and then they start to steal data. Could be for days, for weeks, for months. Your job is to use the decryption technology you've got to try and map their lateral movements. But it's difficult. Because, for example, your out-of-band doesn't work with TLS 1.3, and if you're working with containerized applications, break and inspect is not an efficient way to try and catch them. So at Gigamon, we went back to the drawing board. In this session, I'm not going to go into detail, but we took a radically new approach that avoids encrypting in the first place, and that's why we call it Precryption technology. What does Precryption deliver for you? 5 key things. First of all, plaintext visibility into all of the encrypted traffic on your network. Secondly, no decryption, no overhead that goes with that. Thirdly, we get rid of key management. Fourthly, you do not need to embed agents in applications. And finally, we work with all TLS versions. So that is the essence of Gigamon's Precryption technology. We want to show it to you. Please contact us, let's book a demonstration, or go to precryption.com. Thank you.
Okay, so now that we've got a taste of what we're talking about today, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our main presenter, Ryan Mahoney, Product Marketing Director at Gigamon. So, Ryan, welcome and take it away.
Scott, and welcome everyone to this presentation on Precryption. My name is Ryan Mahoney with the product team here at Gigamon, and I'm happy to walk you through a short overview of Precryption, the latest innovation from Gigamon. In this webinar, we're going to talk about why is Precryption needed, what it is and how it works. We're going to walk through some key use cases, most of them focused around network security. And then we'll show a short demo, and at the end we'll have a live Q&A where I'll happily take your questions. Okay, so let's start with kind of the why is Precryption needed, and we will start by considering three big security challenges in modern enterprises. First is the continued increase in adoption for cloud and virtualization. Applications are migrating away from highly secure on-prem environments into areas where networking is far more complex, lateral transactions are harder to see, cloud security tools are still evolving, and it has been challenging for security organizations to keep up. According to Venafi, a cybersecurity leader, over 80% of organizations had a cloud security incident in the last year. Second, dev teams are running fast. Pressured with tighter deadlines, they prioritize functionality first and may simply be unaware of vulnerabilities they introduce. Security teams have been pressuring dev teams to share in this accountability, leading to better but still limited results. And third, modern concealment methods like perfect forward secrecy make it impossible to see certain threat activity. Lateral movement and protocol tunneling have been undetectable in certain areas of the cloud. And where decryption does exist, it's both cumbersome and only gives spotty coverage, creating the perfect ecosystem for the bad guys to lurk undetected. However, Gigamon is perfectly suited to combat all three of these challenges. First, our existing universal cloud tap is purpose-built to secure a wide range of cloud, container, and VM environments. Second, our network-derived intelligence delivers consistent visibility to both DevOps and SecOps teams, enabling them to de-silo and work together to see all the threats. And third, our new Precryption capability is a game-changing innovation to reveal threat activity encrypted on east-west or lateral channels within the cloud, and it does so in an elegant and efficient way. It improves security posture while reducing operational complexity in the process. In a moment, we'll talk about just how this happens, but first I want to give you three more statistics to consider. First, over 90% of threats now use encrypted channels. While encryption is great for protecting data in motion, it's also protecting the bad guys while they hack systems and cover their tracks. Second, security tools are 5 times more effective working with unencrypted or plain text traffic. Having to decrypt traffic is a performance hit, it's a key management hassle, and trying to spot threats by guessing what's inside encrypted traffic is just not as effective as using plain text visibility and knowing what's inside encrypted traffic. And lastly, our own survey of over 1,000 IT security professionals revealed that 31% of data breaches went undetected by security tools in the last year, due in part to this blind spot of encrypted cloud traffic. So let's talk about how Precryption helps to solve this and redefine hybrid cloud security. So what is Precryption? Fundamentally, Precryption is plain text visibility of encrypted cloud traffic, but without actually having to decrypt anything. Gigamon Precryption is leveraging native Linux functionality, known as eBPF, to listen to the input and output of encryption libraries, such as OpenSSL. Through special privileges, Precryption can tap the communication between applications and their encryption libraries and grab the message right before it's encrypted and sent onto the network. In this way, we call it precryption because it's grabbing it before it's encrypted. So precryption is not actually decrypting anything, which means We don't have to manage keys. We don't sniff keys. We don't expose keys. We don't need key libraries. We certainly don't have to care about cipher strength. We also aren't having to, quote, break and inspect the encrypted channel. Nothing is getting broken, but that critical inspection still happens. In order to get a full appreciation for precryption, it's important to take a moment and understand what is this concept of perfect forward secrecy. So perfect forward secrecy is a feature of modern encryption which renders out-of-band decryption obsolete. It's part of all forms of TLS 1.3 and optionally enabled in TLS 1.2, and we estimate over 30% of encrypted traffic today uses perfect forward secrecy, and this number will continue to grow as more compliance takes hold. So with perfect forward secrecy, out-of-band decryption is useless because it relies on collecting keys on the wire. But precryption is not foiled by this because it's not actually performing a decryption. Let's look a little bit further at how precryption works in a fuller context. So consider you have an application or two applications, or an application and any other destination that it's trying to talk to. Okay, when it wants to encrypt a message, the first thing it's going to do is it is going to communicate to its encryption library, usually local on the same host. This is a very fast connection, usually happening over sockets or through a kernel. And so this encryption library will perform the encryption. So the application sends a plain text message to the encryption library. The encryption library will encrypt it and send it back to the application. But before it gets to the encryption library, the Gigamon Universal Cloud Tap has received a plain text copy of that message. The encryption library still sends the encrypted message back to the application as if nothing happened, and the application forwards it onto the network. There's, without any modification, there's no proxy, no re-encryption, no retransmissions here. But critically, that plain text copy of the message was received by Gigamon and forwarded to the deep observability pipeline, and ultimately delivered to tools, security tools, like network detection and response tools, for example, where further analysis can take place so that threats can be spotted. So this is kind of the single node view. If we expand a little bit further into a multi-node view, it works very similar, but the main point here is that precryption, as the name implies, can grab traffic before it's encrypted, but it also has the ability to grab it after it's decrypted. This may be more desirable in certain scenarios, such as if you are, if you have an application that is more server-based and the clients you may have less control over the clients that are talking to them. So precryption works in both the before encryption and after decryption scenarios. Okay. Precryption also works for multi-cloud environments. Something like 86%, that was a stat I saw recently, of organizations had multi-cloud, which means their virtual presence wasn't limited to just VMware or just AWS or just Azure. It was several platforms that were using an all of the above approach. One of the great things about precryption is that since it runs on top of our universal cloud tap, it runs in all of these environments, both container-based as well as VM-based. Could be public cloud, could be an on-prem virtual. Any type of virtualized traffic is part of what we call cloud or multi-cloud or hybrid cloud. And so precryption works on all of the above. And I just want to also point out that within the deep observability pipeline, we have some optimization capabilities. One of them is known as deduplication. So an easy button approach could be to run precryption across all nodes, and if you have both sides of the communication tap, we can deduplicate so that you're not sending duplicate traffic to the tools. It's far more efficient that way. Okay. So let's highlight a few more key aspects of Precryption. First, it's worth noting that our universal cloud tap runs independent of any application. In a containerized environment, as depicted here, it runs on a separate container pod. This means it's not interfering with the lifecycle management of the applications. It's running independent and remains an independent observer of the ground truth by monitoring communications and not subject to the workings or whims of any individual application. Second, UCT runs at the worker node level, meaning it's going to see every app, every container's use of the encryption library. This includes known apps, ones that you would expect to see there, but it can also include, crucially, unknown apps that may have been created by a threat actor. So it's going to see everything. Third, there's a natural question that may arise around data protection. And is Precryption itself keeping data secure since it has this plain text visibility? And to address this concern, we have delivered a new feature called Secure Tunnels. With Secure Tunnels, UCT can further protect the data by optionally re-encrypting the mirrored traffic as it's delivered to the deep observability pipeline. And then lastly, also on the topic of data protection, once inside the deep observability pipeline, Gigamon can take further measures to protect sensitive data from reaching tools, including options for filtering, for masking out sensitive data like credit cards, social security numbers, or you can just slice off entire payloads and send headers only. Many of these are very effective methods for security tools to be able to do what they need to do without being bogged down by a lot of noise of excess traffic and data or sensitive data. Okay, so this has been an overview of how Precryption works. Let's talk through a few use cases. So there are 4 key use cases. There are more than 4, but we're going to highlight these 4 today. This first one is around thwarting cybercrime. We also have zero trust in the cloud, TLS 1.3 compliance, and DNS security. So let's talk about thwarting cybercrime. What I'm going to do in this slide is I'm going to walk you through the anatomy of a cybercrime attack. And on the right-hand side, you can see what can be reported by security tools, both with and without decryption. So let's go through this. So a cybercrime attack or a ransomware attack typically starts with a threat actor gaining access to an employee's laptop off network through phishing or some other credential harvesting. One would hope that endpoint security would prevent or detect this, but unfortunately we know that doesn't always happen. It can be bypassed. Once access is gained, the laptop performs a call out to a command and control operation, letting the threat actors know that the phish was successful. From here, the threat actor can install a keystroke logger or any number of other methods to harvest credentials. And now they wait. They wait until the employee logs into a corporate resource, which they eventually do, normal course of business, nothing suspicious here. However, the threat actor has now learned and copied the credentials of that corporate user and can use that to either piggyback off of the same connection or create a separate parallel connection in the background. So once inside, the threat actor will typically perform other evasion tasks like log deletion. They will perform privilege escalations and start searching the network for other resources, which brings us to our first lateral movement. So here the threat actor has detected and successfully connected to another corporate resource. This one happens to have excess free space on local storage, making it the perfect host to use as a drop server. The security tool either didn't catch it because it wasn't looking, or it saw it, but it appeared as benign noise because it was encrypted. But with plain text visibility from Precryption, the security tool was able to detect that it was a known web server attack and that it was successful. Next, the threat actor establishes a backdoor from the command and control server to the drop server so that the rest of this attack no longer relies on that employee laptop to stay connected. The threat actor may also use this opportunity to download malware or other hacking tools via encrypted channels and tunnel protocols, such as DNS over HTTPS, which we'll profile later. Depending on the strength of the perimeter security, such as if there's a full proxy in place, which can decrypt TLS 1.3, the threat actor may elect to skip those downloads and just live off the land, which is another common and growing technique. Once the backdoor is established, the threat actor engages in more discovery and more lateral movement, and eventually gaining access to higher value servers and higher value data, again over encrypted channels and with protocol tunneling. This graphic depicts infiltration of data storage, but in some cases, threat actors don't even have to get to a database. They can extract everything they need just from watching data flow through the application servers. Then begins the slow copy of data from the secure high-value location over to the less well-protected drop server. This can take a while to do effectively. The threat actor does not want to impact performance or cause any other alarms. So this can take days, weeks, or months. Average dwell time is something like 9 months. That's the amount of time threat actors will spend inside of a network prior to the exfiltration, which is our next step here. The data exfiltration, once the threat actor has siphoned enough data, now comes the large and typically fast exfiltration of data. The perimeter security would likely detect that something is happening, but depending on its decryption strength, it may be blind to know exactly what was taken or how big it is. And lastly, after the data transfer is complete, the threat actor will finally encrypt all the data with their own key and extort the targeted business, both for the encryption key and the stolen data. And this is a common anatomy of a ransomware attack. If you've been following along on the right-hand side, you will notice that with Gigamon Precryption, there was an extra level of visibility to watch the threat actor from during this dwell time period, during the 9 months that they were in the network, and not just watching them during the initial breach or the final exfiltration. So this highlights the importance of lateral movement visibility, and Precryption now brings that in a cloud environment. So this has been detecting lateral movement to thwart cybercrime. I'm now going to move into a few other use cases. The next one is extending zero trust. So many organizations have zero trust initiatives. Fundamentally, what is zero trust? There's many different ways to think about it and define it, but one simple way is to say, don't just inspect traffic at the perimeter. Fundamentally, zero trust requires inspection of every resource, because threat actors are very good at moving around once inside the perimeter. But what about modern architectures, which have cloud and hybrid cloud assets? Workloads can run on virtual machines, containers, and even public cloud. And what about when this traffic is encrypted? How can we detect threats inside lateral encrypted cloud-based traffic? So existing solutions like break and inspect are not suited for zero trust on cloud resources. And out-of-band decryption doesn't work for TLS 1.3. So this is why Gigamon built Precryption, which is designed to provide plaintext visibility on cloud, virtual, and container traffic that would otherwise be encrypted, in order to help zero trust infrastructure, zero trust architecture, detect these critical lateral movements, protocol tunneling, data siphoning, and other nefarious activity that we previewed in the prior slide. The third use case is around TLS 1.3 compliance. So IT security professionals have been telling us overwhelmingly, something like 90%, have some level of concern about the disruption in visibility that comes with TLS 1.3 adoption. Yet they are forced to go to TLS 1.3 for various compliance reasons. Traditionally, many organizations have implemented an out-of-band decryption scheme depicted in this first segment here, but that no longer works for TLS 1.3. As we profiled the perfect forward secrecy earlier, out-of-band decryption just doesn't work. So this has led some organizations to try rather unnatural acts, such as a virtual inline decryption, where applications that are literally right next to each other are forced to communicate through special routes, through choke points, in order to perform decryption in special spots. And this is horribly inefficient and creates it's really not suitable for the cloud. It can be effective for some on-prem environments where you already have virtual routing everywhere, but in a containerized environment, it just doesn't make sense. And then third, we have key sniffer agents. This with key sniffer agents, you have really an agent that is now acting as a proxy for that application and is extracting the keys and forward them to some centralized decryption. But this has several problems. The first and foremost is that agents are embedded inside the application, which is a problem for most developers. Most developers don't like agents. Plus, the operational teams have to worry about lifecycle management. They have to upgrade their agents along with their application and test their applications along with the agents. And so it's kind of a nightmare from that perspective, but also fundamentally, it's forwarding keys outside of the application, breaking the entire intent of perfect forward secrecy. Lastly, we come to Precryption, which is based on universal cloud tap, so it's running independent, so it's not an agent inside the application. We're not forcing traffic to route externally. The app 1 can talk directly to app 2. And of course, this works for TLS 1.3. So we expect that Precryption may be a great part of the entire recipe of TLS 1.3 compliance. Okay. And then our last use case is around DNS security. And this is sort of a broader category of protocol tunneling, but we're profiling DNS security here in particular because it's the most common one. In particular, DNS over HTTPS is a preferred protocol for threat actors. So what they do is they infiltrate an enterprise app, and then they talk to their command and control or talk somewhere laterally using DNS messages. They're not using it for a typical DNS purpose. They're just using this protocol of DNS to hide sensitive or stolen information that they can forward out without being detected, because DNS protocols, when it's in, or DNS inside of HTTPS is running over port 443. So it's going to look like any other HTTPS web traffic. Most firewalls are just going to let that through because web traffic, we don't want to block web traffic, but it's really inside that encrypted protocol that some data may be hidden. But with Precryption, in particular, combined with our network-derived intelligence capability, we can transform these plain text packets that we receive from Precryption, transform them into metadata, enrich it with information about the protocol so that we can say this is DNS over HTTPS and send that to a SIM. So the SIM will see it as DNS over HTTPS instead of just regular HTTPS web traffic, or by boosting the power, the performance, the capability of that SIM. So this has been a look at the 4 use cases. We'll be interested to take any questions you have on these in a few moments. But before we get to that, I promised a demo, and so we actually have a video here that I'm going to play of a short video that will walk you through a demo where you can actually see parts of the Precryption product in action, and you can see it before and after. So we'll go ahead and play that video now.
In this video, I'm going to show you how Gigamon's latest breakthrough technology, Precryption, works. Hi, I'm Yarani Rajesh, and I'm a technical marketing engineer from Gigamon. Say you get an email, presumably from a reliable source. But what if that source turns out to be a malicious agent? Let's look at this scenario now, and then I will show you how Precryption technology addresses this challenge. Let's get started. I got an email from IRS stating a refund is due and to download a form using this link. So I'm going to click on the link, go ahead and download the file. Next, I'm going to go over to my Security Onion to see if my download is legit. Security Onion is a malware detection tool that sits in my environment to detect any alerts in my system. So I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh. I do not see any alerts, so I'm going to go ahead and click on my download, but only to realize that this was an encrypted malware file. Now, wouldn't it have been great to have the environment catch this malware before it was opened? Gigamon Precryption technology now allows you to read traffic in an unencrypted state, which means you can read the traffic before it was encrypted. To enable this, log into your Gigamon Fabric Manager. Gigamon FM is a single pane of glass for all your configuration and monitoring needs. On the Fabric Manager, go to your monitoring session, created depending on whether you're using physical or virtual nodes. I am using an AWS environment in this example. So I'm going to go to my AWS monitoring session. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on edit. And this is how my flow map looks like. So I have my IPv4 container app traffic going into my Security Onion and my Wireshark. So I'm going to go to options and I'm going to go and just click on this button. That's it. That's how easy it is to enable Precryption. Going ahead and saving this and deploy. Now, after deploying this session, I'm going to go ahead and download that file again. And now on Security Onion, when I go ahead and refresh, I'll be able to see the malware alert. And that is how Gigamon Precryption technology can help you see concealed threat activity in the cloud, improve your security posture, and reduce operational complexity while also letting your developers run fast. Prevention is better than cure.
Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that video of Precryption. Just going to wrap up with this slide here, just contrasting Precryption technology with some of the other decryption solutions that have been available on the market. Native mirroring plus tool decryption doesn't work for TLS 1.3. Inline proxy decryption requires complicated and special routing. Embedded agent sniffers involve having agents inside of container workloads. And in all three cases, they are having to perform expensive decryption calculations and manage keys. And so with Precryption, you also get the ability to add in network-derived intelligence, again, to power SIMs, as NDRs, any security tools that you might think of. And thank you so much. So here's just a quick look at who Gigamon is if you're not familiar. And with that, we will move into our Q&A section. We'll be happy to take your questions.
All right, Ryan, great presentation. And now joining Ryan for Q&A is Brian Sullivan, who's Product Management Director for Cloud at Gigamon. So Ryan and Brian, are you guys ready for some questions?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yep. All right, super. And hey, I just have to admit, when I first heard about Precryption, I was thinking about, bad actors sending files from outside the organization. It wasn't really clear what value the Precryption before encryption would have. But Ryan, especially with your examples of the lateral movement and attackers' activities once they're inside your network, it's clear how precryption can really be valuable, especially given all the statistics we see about dwell time. What was that you said about 9 months was the average that you've seen?
Yeah, something like 9 months. Or 280 some odd days, I think, which is around a 9 month period. Yeah, so actors, there are some actors who get in and try to get data as quickly as possible, to extort as quickly as possible. There are others who like to get in and never want to be detected. So the scenario that I walked through was a ransomware scenario. There are other types of threat actors that are there for are really there to watch and monitor and learn secrets, or you know, advanced persistent threats is another name for that, if you're familiar.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems like precryption would be a way to, drastically reduce the dwell time, or at least the time that you're unaware that somebody's in there.
Yeah, that's the whole goal. Among security folks, sometimes the knowing what's happening in the network can um, can be equally important as knowing what happened. Like, if after the fact and bad actors took something, and how big was it, that can be just as important. Precryption helps enable both of those, but ideally, the ideal scenario is that precryption is really powering your tools to set up detection so that you can prevent these things from happening. And when they are in your network for 280 days or even 1 day, you can detect and shut it down.
Yeah, yeah, and and you discussed during the presentation some of those other security tools. It always reminds me of the old Saturday morning cartoon commercials about this cereal is part of a complete breakfast. What are some of those other security tools that that you're feeding information to, that then can make it
Ab-
actionable?
Absolutely. So there's a wide range of security tools. Perhaps the most common one that I think about that pairs very well with precryption is NDR, or network detection and response. But when we say security tools, we're really talking about the full stack. So it would include NDR, would include next-gen firewalls, or intrusion prevention systems, SIMs, data loss prevention. Brian, any others you can think of that would be included in there?
No, that's much of it. I mean, I think the underlying concept is security, right? And I think that's the biggest area that we've heard from. We have heard from a couple customers and partners about performance components, but I think overwhelmingly it's definitely security. And I'd echo that NDR is probably the top of on that list.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Um, let's see. Are there any limitations of precryption? Are there situations where it wouldn't work?
Um, I'm going to say yes, there are some. It is so precryption is fundamentally based on that eBPF technology, which is found in Linux kernels, so Linux kernel 5.4 or later. So modern versions of any Linux distribution will support this. So if there are situations where there are older Linux or non-Linux operating systems, it would not yet work for those, Windows being the most common among them. But we do understand that similar technology is maybe under development from Microsoft, and if and when that happens, we would certainly integrate with Windows as well.
Okay. All right. Excellent. We had a question here from Paul, who's asking, since precryption is a new offering, what kind of support and training does Gigamon offer for customers implementing precryption?
Brian, you want to take that one?
Yeah, the answer is first off, the precryption is part of our SecureView Plus bundle for Cloud Suite, and so there's kind of existing training and existing documentation and information that's available about that, and we've incorporated precryption into that. So I would say, work with your partner on how to be able to get full training, and if you're a partner, then work with Gigamon. We'll be able to get you some training how it is. But the good news, as we saw in the demo from Urini, is that it's literally just turning on the component. It's a focus of traffic acquisition, and therefore it's fairly straightforward to figure out exactly what is going on and how I'm getting that data. Most of the work is really under the hood.
Okay. All right. Super. Another one from Paul is wondering if Precryption would help fintech companies meet compliance requirements. He says, especially DORA.
I would have to imagine absolutely. Fintech probably have some of the most strict security standards you can imagine. Understandably, they're dealing with all of our money. So I certainly would want my fintech company to, or just financials in general, to have the most stringent security possible. So yes, they certainly would have cloud resources, and yes, they would be looking for threats and wanting to detect lateral movement. And yes, to the question directly, TLS 1.3 compliance would certainly be something that's high on their list if they haven't already adopted it.
Okay. Yeah, the only other thing I'd add just quickly there is I would say that government agencies and financial services are the two main areas that I've heard real interest from customers on. So I'd agree with what Ryan is saying as well.
Excellent. A question here from Adam is wondering if the Precryption methodology is patented, or can we expect to see similar approaches taken by other companies?
So Gigamon, as might be understandable, we've taken the appropriate measures to protect the intellectual property here. We certainly recognize that we're the first solution in the market. There may be others who try to do similar things. I can't comment on what others may or may not do, but we're certainly excited about the potential for this offering.
Okay, excellent. And one of the things that I was wondering is there a way to prevent an attacker from uploading their own encryption tool to thwart the UCT?
Brian, I think you would like to take that one.
Would I? No.
Yeah.
There isn't something that we can kind of prevent precisely in that manner. There is prevention that can be done, and it's basically in conjunction with our tools and our partner tools, as you mentioned, Scott, the complete breakfast. There's ways to figure out if the software being downloaded is another library, SSL TLS library, and that's what would need to be done. But there's nothing kind of within Precryption in and of itself that would stop that. But again, as packages are being installed into a system, either in conjunction with an APM or other application tools, or in conjunction with some of the security tools, you'll be able to see that there is another library that's then being installed and being utilized.
Got it. Okay. And we have another audience question here. They're wondering, can't DNS over HTTPS be detected by the firewall? What makes this different?
Yes, it can. So next generation firewalls, which tend to exist as part of that perimeter security, they can decrypt. They can decrypt HTTPS, and they could detect protocol tunneling if such features were enabled. So what this does is for the companies, organizations that rely more on SIMs, and obviously the ideal scenario is that you've got NDR watching packets, you've got SIMs looking at the logs and the observability data, you've got both of those running. But we know that reality is some organizations may only have a SIM, and so for those organizations, this is another capability to boost the SIM. So we see that Precryption plus the metadata that we can generate and then enrich with that plaintext visibility data, that can really power SIMs is the intent there.
Okay. All right. Super. Well, we've gotten through a lot of questions here. Ryan, if somebody wants to get started with Precryption, got a lot of resources here on the page, but what would you recommend as far as their next steps?
So probably the top two links under that resources tab. So if you are the type that likes to read and ponder, then the solution brief, I think it's something like 10 pages long, so it's got a bunch of details and things to consider. Some of it is stuff that you heard in this presentation, but there's some stuff outside of that. So it's a great thing to just read on your own. If you are the type that learns better through interaction and doing and trying, and we have a whole army of people who are available to help and assist, personal demo sessions or just have conversations about what it can do for you.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, Ryan and Brian, thank you guys so much for putting together a really informative presentation, for all your insights here in the Q&A. Very exciting technology. Appreciate you coming on to explain it to us.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and everybody, we've got about a minute or two left. So if you did want any of those resources, be sure to grab them now, because the console's about to close. So we've got all of those there in the handout section. There's the precryption.com link, that demo session link, and then there's 2 PDFs there, and also the demo video link. So just sort of a last call here, if you're interested in those links, to grab them. Okay, and before we wrap up, we have one more piece of business. It's the Amazon gift card prize drawing, and the winner of the $250 Amazon gift card today is Nathan Lancaster from Virginia. So congratulations to Nathan. We'll be in touch to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Gigamon and Ryan and Brian for making this event possible. And thanks as always for attending and for your great questions. That concludes today's event. Have a fantastic rest of your day.